I suppose the joke and the major pull of this movie is its title. We are of course talking Debbie Does Demons, and of course that is a play on the famous pornographic movie Debbie Does Dallas. So this is directed and co-written by Donald Farmer and stars Jessica Flux, who you may have seen in Murdercides, which is kind of a throwback kind of 80s style movie. So Debbie Does Demons. What's the story? Does it even have one? Well, I will tell you. It focuses on a group of friends who are doing a Ouija board, and they conjure the spirit of this long dead witch played by Jessica Flux, and you know, she kind of wants to take over the world, reign with demons and all that kind of stuff. So this group of friends try to get the help of a kind of TV personality in the form of Debbie from the paranormal investigation show Debbie Does Demons, and together can they defeat this kind of witchy menace from Carmela, the character played by Jessica Flux. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So, does this movie even really have a plot? Kind of. I mean, it's a basic plot, but there's one there. That's a plus point, I suppose. Another plus point, if you like lots of boobs, then Jessica Flux has pretty much got her bangers out for the entirety of this movie. So there's lots of TNA in this film. I suppose the highlight of the film is where she has a kind of sex scene with a demon puppet. I mean, it sounds like it'd be quite explicit. It's not really, to be honest with you. But yes, that actually happens in the film, as I suspect would be the most memorable sequence in the movie. Very low budget film. There's a couple of reasonable kind of like rubber monsters and things. I don't think it's, you know, I've seen worse, but it is a very, very low budget film. This film isn't trying to be high art. It's not trying to be a dramatic movie. It's not trying to be a serious movie. It is trying to be a TNA horror film, exploitation, kind of really aiming for that cult kind of grindhouse cinema crowd who like crappy movies. Because, I mean, like it or not, this is a crappy movie. Is there anything really to genuinely kind of say, oh, this bit was done well? Not really, if I'm honest. I mean, there's a couple of bits I feel will give you some entertainment, but I can't honestly say it's kind of like cinematically well made at any point. I mean, the whole kind of music, the kind of the production, the kind of the audio mixing isn't good. The acting isn't good. The kind of the special effects are very cheap, and I feel like they're just kind of made from whatever was kind of lying around. But you know, it's a kind of cheesy exploitation flick. I feel you probably have some idea about what is kind of this film will be like, despite its name and despite the kind of me saying that Jessica Flux is basically semi-naked through the film. It's not particularly kind of explicit, really. I mean, it kind of feels like this may have, you know, been a kind of idea for a porn film, but they've just not ever, you know, you don't ever really see anything other than a bit of TNA, as I say. It's kind of like silly. It's a short film. There may be some entertainment value to have this on the background. And I've said this about a couple of films. If you've ever watched a horror film, and in that horror film there's been a sequence where the characters in the movie are kind of watching TV, and there's some kind of like made up horror film on the TV that the people are watching, it feels like one of those. It feels like a kind of film within a film where they quickly shot some kind of like dodgy you know, footage to make it look like there's some film playing on the TV. It kind of looks like that, to be honest. I mean, if we look at obviously what doesn't work now, I mean, like I've said, it's very, very cheap. The plot is very slight, and it keeps even though there's not much plot here, and the movie's actually quite short, it's only probably just over an hour long. It still manages to kind of meander off and have sequences that and characters that seemingly have no bearing on it. There's a sequence involving a bunch of vampire nuns that has absolutely nothing to do with the actual story. There's a scene at the end which is kind of like this other demon woman turns up, and it's just like, I mean, I noticed in the credits that there was like lots of different kind of shoots over America. So I feel like what's happened is that they've created this this movie. It's not been long enough to distribute as a feature-length film. So they've basically just kind of incorporated a few scenes that were shot from other parts of the country with different actors and bunged him in here to kind of give it a somewhat more of a, you know, feature length. That's what I suspect happened. Yeah, I mean, everything you think is going to be cheap and crappy with this movie, it is. You know, it's not trying to be a kind of a good movie necessarily, but it genuinely feels like this is something that you'd see on YouTube by a group of friends just getting together and kind of having a laugh, not having really any script, they're just kind of like making a kind of a film over the weekend. That is what it feels like. I mean, Jessica Flux, as I say, is you know, a voluptuous kind of like scream queen. That there's probably that to kind of entice the male gaze, I suppose. But other than that, it doesn't really offer anything like particularly kind of worthwhile. I mean, it doesn't really lean into, like I said, it doesn't really lean into the kind of the explicit sex side. It doesn't lean into the gore side. I think they could have maybe, you know, had this have been a bit more of a parody or a kind of like homage to kind of horror films. Instead, it just feels like a kind of like relatively weak kind of generic story, just kind of put together by kind of an amateur cast and crew, with a few kind of random sequences put in with some rubbish rubber monsters. It's like, there's nothing really genuinely I can say that the movie does particularly well, or it's kind of you know, a knowingly classic crappy campy movie. It just feels very amateur. Like I said, maybe it has some value as to put something on in the kind of the background on a Halloween party or something like that, but that's about as best as I can kind of genuinely say this movie is worth, you know, worth watching for. So, you know, it's a 3 out of 10, and I feel I'm being relatively generous giving it that, if I'm honest. So, have you seen Debbie Does Demons? Please do let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.